Wow, AI helping the blind see again. I mean, is this for real?
It's amazing, isn't it? We've got actual clinical trials, people getting some of their vision back.
It's like one minute you're reading about implants, the next it's algae protein.
Right. It's crazy. Like this retinal implant thing, people with AMD, that age-related macular degeneration, they're starting to see letters again.
From like barely any sight at all to actually reading. That's incredible.
Yeah, their vision's jumping from like 2450 to 2160, but it's more than just numbers. It's about people being able to read again, see faces.
Exactly. And it's not just implants, right? There's this whole algae protein thing too, optogenetic therapy or whatever.
Yeah.
Algae to help people see. Seriously.
Sounds nuts, I know, but it's showing some real promise, especially for people with retinitis pigmentosa. They basically take this light-sensitive protein from algae and put it into retinal cells. Then they use special glasses that boost the light, and those cells can actually react and send signals to the brain. It's letting them see light and shapes.
So we've got implants, algae, and then there's ultrasound too. What's that all about?
Ultrasound stimulation, it's a totally different approach. They're not focusing on the eye itself this time, but looking at how to use ultrasound waves to stimulate the neurons in the visual cortex directly, basically bypassing damaged eye structures. It's still really experimental, but the potential's huge.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
All this is still super early, but the fact that we're seeing any vision restoration at all is amazing.
It's groundbreaking stuff, no doubt. For the first time ever, we have a chance to give functional vision back to people who've lost it. It's important to remember, though, we're still early days. There are going to be challenges.
Yeah, the articles mention those too, like object recognition. AI still has trouble with that, right? Especially with different lighting.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty big deal if you're relying on AI to get around.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if your app tells you there's a curb and it misses it because the sun's setting, that's not just annoying, it's dangerous. We need AI that can handle real-world conditions and give you accurate info no matter what.
And then there's the processing power thing, right? All this analysis and feedback has to happen in real time. That's got to take some serious computing power.
Oh, for sure. We need algorithms that can process information on the fly and give feedback instantly. And not just process, but understand it, in context.
Speaking of context, that's another limitation the articles talk about. AI is not great at understanding complex environments or what the user's actually trying to do. It can see a car, a person, a building, but figuring out how they all relate to each other and what the user wants to do with that info is a whole other level of difficulty.
Right. Think about trying to cross a busy street with an AI navigation app. You need to know more than just that there are cars there. You need to know their speed, direction, are they going to stop? AI's got to get way better at understanding not just what things are, but how they act in a real, changing environment.
And it's not just about objects either, right? The articles also mention AI struggles with describing motion, which seems pretty important for getting around safely.
Exactly. Think about pouring a glass of water. You can tell how full it is by how the water moves. AI still has a hard time with those kinds of cues.
So it seems like we've got some big hurdles before AI can actually replace human vision. But even with those limitations, there's some pretty amazing AI stuff out there already that's helping people, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We may be a while away from fully replicating vision, but there are amazing things happening right now that are really making a difference.
Like what? I was really interested in the image and object recognition stuff. Those apps that can basically describe the world to you, that's wild.
Yeah, apps like Seeing AI and Lookout are using AI to identify and describe objects, people, scenes, all sorts of things. Imagine pointing your phone at a menu and it reads it to you, or telling you who's at the door. It's giving people with visual impairments a whole new level of independence.
It's like having a personal assistant that can see for you.
Exactly. It's about empowering people to interact with their environment in ways they couldn't before. And it's not just about identifying objects, it's about understanding what they mean in context.
So not just saying chair, but saying empty chair in front of you. Way more useful.
Exactly. And it's learning and improving all the time. The more data it gets, the better it gets at understanding and describing the world.
That's amazing. So it's not just seeing, it's understanding.
Right. And that understanding goes beyond the physical world, too. AI is also changing how visually impaired people access information.
Like text reading. Those be huge for everyday stuff.
Totally. Think about checking your mail, reading bills, browsing the web. Things we take for granted, AI is making all that possible for people who can't see print.
And it's not just printed text, right? It can read handwriting, tell you the emotional tone of a text message, describe images in textbooks.
Exactly. And it keeps getting better. We're seeing advancements in natural language processing, which means AI is getting better at understanding not just the words themselves, but the meaning behind them.
So instead of just reading in a monotone, it could actually...
That's the goal. The more data these systems get, the better they get at capturing all those nuances of human language.
Incredible. It's like AI is bridging the gap between the visual world and people who can't see it, making information and experiences accessible in totally new ways.
And that bridge extends to the physical world, too. AI is being used to make some really sophisticated navigation and orientation systems.
You mean like those apps that use augmented reality to help people get around? I was reading about that. It's like having a guide dog in your pocket.
It really is. They use GPS, sensors, computer vision, all kinds of things to give feedback about the surroundings in real time. They can detect obstacles, find landmarks, even warn you about hazards like construction or traffic.
So it's not just about getting from point A to point B. It's about being safe and confident while you're doing it.
Exactly. It's about giving people the freedom to move through the world on their own terms.
That's amazing. But even with all this cool stuff, it sounds like there's still a lot of work to do to make AI really accessible and effective for everyone with visual impairments. What are some of the biggest challenges researchers are still working on?
Well, one of the biggest is personalization. Everybody's experience of vision loss is different. One-size-fits-all solutions just don't work.
So it's not just about developing the technology, it's about tailoring it to individual needs and preferences.
Exactly. We need AI that can adapt to different levels of vision loss, different learning styles, different ways of interacting with the world.
And that means involving visually impaired people in the design process, right?
Absolutely. We need their feedback and insights to make sure these technologies are actually meeting their needs and empowering them to live their lives to the fullest.
And it's not just about the tech itself, right? There are social and ethical things to consider too.
Right. As AI gets more integrated into our lives, we need to think carefully about things like privacy, security, and accessibility.
For sure. Yeah. We need to make sure these technologies are being used responsibly and ethically, and that everyone benefits equally.
Absolutely. It's about creating a future where AI empowers everyone, no matter what their abilities are.
Well said. This is clearly a field that's changing super fast with huge potential and challenges. It's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Absolutely. It's a really exciting time to be looking at AI and vision.
And on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored the amazing potential of AI to restore sight and make things more accessible for people who are visually impaired. But we've also talked about the very real challenges that are still out there. But, let's not get too bogged down in the tech stuff just yet. In the next part of our deep dive, I kind of want to shift gears and explore a different but just as fascinating aspect of all this, the human element.
Oh, that's interesting. What exactly do you have in mind?
Well, we've talked a lot about the technology, but I'm really curious to hear from people whose lives have actually been touched by these advancements. I want to hear their stories, their hopes, their fears, what it's really been like for them.
I love that idea. Technology is only as powerful as the impact it has on people. Hearing their stories will give us a much deeper understanding of what's really at stake.
Exactly. So join us next time as we continue our deep dive into the world of AI and vision. We're going to be exploring not just the science and tech, but the human stories that make this topic so compelling.
I can't wait. It's so important to remember, this isn't just about technology, it's about real people.
Right. And that's what makes it so fascinating. It's not just science, it's human impact. So let's talk more about that human side of things. The articles you sent mentioned this thing called sensory substitution. Blew my mind. It's like, even if you can't restore sight, AI could help the brain understand the world in totally different ways.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Sensory substitution is basically using AI to translate visual information into other senses, like sound or touch. Instead of trying to recreate actual sight, we could use AI to, say, turn visual data into sounds. And the brain could learn to understand those sounds as a way of seeing the environment.
So it's like creating a whole new language for the brain, right? A language of sound or touch instead of sight.
Exactly. And there's some really cool research happening with this. For example, there are devices that use cameras to capture visual info and then translate it into spatial audio cues. The user can basically hear the layout of a room or how things are moving around them.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like their brain is building a map with sound. But wouldn't that be super overwhelming trying to process all that?
It definitely takes time and training, but the brain is amazingly adaptable. It can learn new ways of processing information. With practice, people can learn to understand these new sensory inputs and build a really detailed understanding of their surroundings.
That's incredible. But it makes me think about those challenges we talked about earlier, right? Even if we can translate visual data into sound or touch, those issues of accuracy, context, and individual needs are still going to be there.
Absolutely. We can't forget about those limitations. We need to keep pushing for better AI across all those sensory areas. The goal is to create systems that aren't just functional, but actually feel natural and empowering to use.
So it's not just about swapping one sense for another, it's about creating experience that feels seamless and intuitive. It should actually enhance how people perceive and interact with the world.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that everyone's blindness is different. There's no one solution for everyone. Personalization and getting feedback from users is super important when you're developing these technologies.
It seems like we're still just scratching the surface of what sensory substitution could be, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
For sure. It's a really exciting area of research. It could totally revolutionize how we think about accessibility and even human perception itself.
Okay, so we've talked about the future, but let's come back to the present for a minute. There are already some awesome AI applications out there that are helping people who are visually impaired right now. Let's talk about some of those.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we talked about retinal implants earlier. Those seem like the closest we've gotten to actually restoring sight with technology.
Mm.
And there are actually FDA-approved implants that are helping people get some level of functional vision, right?
That's right. Systems like Argus II have been shown to improve vision in patients with conditions like retinitis pigmentosa. It's not perfect vision, of course, but it lets them see shapes, movement, even some letters. It's a huge step toward independence and a better quality of life.
It's amazing that people who are completely blind can now get around, recognize faces, even read large print. It's like a whole new world opening up to them.
Yeah. It's about giving them back that sense of control and connection with the world. It's not just about seeing better. It's about being able to do things they couldn't do before, like reading a story to their kid or crossing the street on their own.
It's important to remember, though, these implants aren't a cure, and they don't work for everyone.
True. How much vision comes back depends on the person and how severe their condition is. And there are still challenges, like image resolution isn't perfect, color perception, dealing with different light conditions. But even with those limitations, it's an amazing advance that's giving a lot of people hope.
And as technology gets better, those limitations might become less of a problem.
Exactly. There are always new innovations in materials, electronics, AI algorithms. They're making these implants more effective and accessible all the time. It's a really exciting field with so much potential.
Retinal implants are one amazing application of AI for vision, but they're definitely not the only one. What other cool tech is out there that's making a difference right now?
Well, we talked about object recognition earlier, those apps that can describe the world. Those are getting more and more sophisticated. They're becoming a part of everyday life.
Right. It's like having a personal guide, telling you what's around you, who you're with, what you're looking at. It's incredible how much info those apps can handle in real time.
I know, right? And they're not just describing things on their own, they're understanding context. So instead of just saying car, it might say red car coming from the left, which is way more helpful if you're trying to cross the street.
That's a great point. It's not just about identifying stuff. It's about understanding how things relate to each other and to the user.
You got it. And that context is what makes these apps so powerful. They're not just tools, they're becoming companions, helping people navigate the world with more confidence and independence.
And it's not just physical spaces either, right? AI is making a huge impact on digital accessibility, too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about everything we do online, reading, news, shopping, banking, social media. AI is making all that possible for people who are visually impaired.
I read about these AI screen readers that can not only read text, but also describe images, find links, and even help you get around on complex websites. That's huge for anyone who relies on screen readers to access information online.
It is. And those screen readers are getting better all the time. Thanks to advancements in natural language processing and machine learning, they're getting better at understanding how language works, how web pages are structured, and what the user's trying to do.
So it's not just reading words, it's making the whole online experience more intuitive and enjoyable.
Exactly. It's about removing those barriers and creating a digital world where everyone can participate, a
Yeah.
truly inclusive digital world.
And it's not just information access, right? AI is changing education and work opportunities for visually impaired people too.
You got it. There are AI tools that can turn textbooks into audio, describe images and diagrams, even help students take notes and do research.
That's amazing. It's like giving everyone a fair chance, letting visually impaired students have the same opportunities as everyone else.
Right. And it's not just about education, it's about making workplaces more inclusive too. AI can help visually impaired employees do all sorts of tasks like data entry, customer service, even coding.
So it's breaking down barriers and helping people achieve their full potential no matter what.
Exactly. And as AI keeps evolving, I think we'll see even more innovations that will make things more accessible and create a more inclusive society for everyone.
Okay, so we've talked about restoring sight, improving accessibility,
Hmm.
but there's one more thing I want to touch on before we move on, and that's the emotional impact of all this.
Mm.
We talk about the tech advancements, but what's it really like for someone who's been blind for years to suddenly see again? What emotions are they going through? What challenges do they face?
Yeah, that's so important. It's easy to focus on the science, but we can't forget about the human side of it.
Exactly. What's it like for someone to experience that kind of change?
I think it's probably a mix of everything: joy, gratitude, hope, but also fear, uncertainty, even maybe a sense of loss for the life they've built without sight.
It's like their whole world is changing. Their sense of self is being redefined.
Absolutely. And it's not just them, it's their families, friends, their whole community. It affects everyone around them.
And it's not just about restoring sight either. People who are using AI-powered tools are experiencing big changes too.
You're right. Imagine being able to walk down a busy street on your own for the first time, or being able to read to your child. Those are life-changing things that go way beyond the tech itself.
It's about feeling independent, connecting with the world in new ways, and just feeling like anything is possible.
And it's important to remember that everyone's journey is different. There's no right or wrong way to experience these changes. Some people might embrace these technologies, while others might be hesitant or even resistant.
That makes sense. It's about respecting people's choices and helping them make informed decisions about how they want to use these technologies in their lives.
Exactly. And creating a supportive environment where people feel comfortable exploring these options without feeling judged or pressured.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot in this part of our deep dive. We've talked about amazing advancements in AI for people who are visually impaired, from implants to object recognition to navigation systems. But we've also talked about the human side of things, remembering that these technologies aren't just about restoring sight or making things more accessible. They're about changing lives and giving people more independence, connection, and possibility.
We've just scratched the surface too. As AI keeps advancing, we can expect even more incredible innovations in the years to come.
For sure. So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I want to turn our attention to the future. What are some of the trends and potential breakthroughs on the horizon? What ethical concerns should we be thinking about? And what kind of future do we want to build with this powerful technology?
Those are great questions. I can't wait to discuss them.
Me too. So join us next time as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of AI and vision. We'll be exploring all the exciting possibilities and important things to consider as we move forward. Okay, so we've talked about what's happening now and what's already been done. But what about the future? What's next for AI and vision?
That's what I love to think about. The progress is just amazing. One thing I'm really excited about is how AI is being combined with brain-computer interfaces, BCIs.
Oh yeah, BCIs, those are where they put electrodes in your brain so you can control computers with your thoughts, right? How does that even work with vision?
It sounds crazy, doesn't it? Well, researchers are trying to use BCIs to basically skip over damaged eyes and optic nerves altogether. They want to send visual information straight to the brain. Imagine a tiny chip implanted in the visual cortex that could let a blind person see shapes, objects, maybe even color.
Wow, that sounds like sci-fi. But wouldn't that require like a super deep understanding of how the brain processes what we see?
Totally. And that's one of the biggest challenges. We're still figuring out how the brain's visual code works, how those electrical signals actually turn into the images and perceptions we experience. But even if it takes a while, the potential is just incredible.
It is. But thinking about those possibilities, it brings up some ethical questions too, right?
Mhm.
What if these brain implants get so advanced that they can not only restore sight, but make it even better than normal?
That's a huge question. Where do we draw the line between just fixing something and actually enhancing it?
Hmm.
And who gets to have access to that kind of technology? These are conversations we need to have now while it's still being developed, not after it's already out there.
Definitely. It's like any powerful tool. It can be used for good or bad. We
Hmm.
got to make sure we're using it responsibly and ethically, focusing on making lives better and creating a more inclusive world for everyone.
Couldn't agree more. Another ethical challenge is bias in these AI systems. If the data used to train the algorithms is skewed, it could lead to some unfair or inaccurate results for certain groups of people.
Right. Like if an AI navigation app was mostly trained on data from cities, it might not work as well in rural areas, or vice versa.
Exactly. And it's not just about location, it's about demographics, cultural differences, all kinds of things that can affect how AI understands the world. We have to make sure these technologies are designed and used fairly for everyone.
So it sounds like there's a lot of work to do, not just on the tech side, but also the social and ethical side.
Absolutely. This isn't just about building cool gadgets, it's about shaping the future. It's about figuring out what kind of world we want to live in and how AI can help us get there.
That actually leads into something I've been wondering. With all these advancements we've been discussing, the ones that are here now and the ones that might be coming, what do you think is the ultimate goal of using AI for vision? Is it just about restoring sight as we know it, or is there something more?
That's a great question. I think the real goal is to open up the possibilities of human perception, to make it so everyone can experience the beauty and wonder of the visual world, no matter what their physical abilities are.
I love that. It's not just about seeing. It's about understanding, connecting, experiencing the world in new and different ways.
Exactly. It's about using the power of AI to create a richer and more inclusive world for everyone.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From the cutting-edge research to the ethical questions, we've really explored the potential of AI to change the lives of people who are visually impaired.
It's been an amazing conversation. I hope our listeners feel inspired by the progress that's being made and also understand the importance of making sure this technology is developed responsibly.
I couldn't agree more. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you'll keep learning and exploring this fascinating topic. It's going to have a huge impact on the future.
And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to create the next amazing AI application that makes the world a better place.
That's a great thought to end on. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.